Jimmy Butler's been acting very volatile this season. It all started with this.
I've been involved in competition in the playoffs against certain opponents that turned into hate. And, for him to say that, if you're not on the court playing against Boston or on the court playing against the New York Knicks, you should keep your mouth shut.
And now he's getting butthurt over not getting an extension during the offseason. His actions have gotten him suspended 3 times this season. My thoughts? Jimmy, you're making $100 million from now until next season. You're getting paid more than guys like SGA, Giannis, Dame, Luka, Kyrie, LeBron, AD, Anthony Edwards, and Jason Tatum this season. Even next year when some of those guys are getting an extension, you'll still make more than most of them. Meanwhile, you're severely underperforming and you're 35 years old. Please, cry me a river. For years, Jimmy Butler has shown us an old school mentality by showing way more grit on the court than most modern players would. We've seen quite the opposite this year because Jimmy is upset over not getting an extension, and also Pat Riley is not happy with Jimmy trash talking during the playoffs last year while he was injured and unable to play. Now because Pat Riley hurt his feelings and chose not to give him the money that he wants,
I want to see me get my joy back from playing basketball.
Boo-hoo! He's fallen out with every team he's ever played for because he wanted more money. Not every fallout he's ever had with his teams are his fault. However, when this is the 4th team that you've played for and every single falling out with your team involved you not getting the money you want, it does make you less appealing to other teams. Now, while he's an aging star who hasn't played at least 70 games since 2017, it's time for him to swallow his pride and just be happy he's still the 11th highest paid player in the league. Shooting one-legged threes while you're already not the best three-point shooter to begin with certainly won't help you get paid. I still think the Sixers were better off giving him the extension that he wanted. He was right about feeling disrespected over
Tobias Harris over me?
No way did Tobias Harris deserve more money from the Sixers than what the Sixers offered Jimmy Butler. Paying Tobias that kind of money was clearly out of desperation. Now though, I really cannot see a reason to side with Jimmy and his inflated ego. If he's going to behave like this and turn away every team, then the trade deadline passes and he's stuck in Miami, then what is he going to do? Just continue to quit on his team? If he wants to at the very least be traded by the summer, if not the trade deadline, or get that extension somehow, some way, he better get his joy for the game back and at least act like he cares. What Jimmy is doing now is only hurting himself. If there's really any GM that's crazy enough to give him the money he wants because of what he accomplished in the past, that GM needs to be fired on the spot. I'm even wondering now, does Jimmy actually care as much about winning as he was once perceived to? Or does he just want to get paid? The Heat are the 6th seed right now and would be a lot better than that if Jimmy actually showed any commitment. He rejected a trade to the Grizzlies, who are currently the 3rd seed in the West and only a game and a half behind the 2nd seed. Why wouldn't he want to go there if he was really all about winning like we've all perceived him to be? He could be a veteran presence for a young team, but it sounds like he'd rather get his last big contract. Jimmy's allowed to not like Pat Riley, even though that's the guy who's been paying him over $200 million over the last 5 seasons, but he should at least have some regard for his teammates, the ones he's been going to battle with every single game. Some of these guys have been his teammates his entire time in Miami. This is just narcissistic behavior and he needs to stop. What Kevin Love posted on Instagram says enough about how his teammates don't appreciate this behavior, and rightfully so. They didn't do anything to be brought into his beef with Pat Riley. Pat Riley has always made it clear that what you did in the past is not what's going to get you paid. It's what you do now that he cares about. It's also always been his way or the highway. He traded Tim Hardaway when seeing he was on the decline. He was fine with parting ways with Alonzo Mourning when Zoe was missing so much time due to his kidney illness. He was the one executive who didn't bow down to LeBron's demands, and that's why LeBron left after losing the 2014 finals. He even let Dwayne Wade, the greatest Miami Heat player in franchise history, walk in free agency in 2016 when it became clear he's past his prime. More recently, when talking about the extension that Jimmy Butler wants, he said that's a big decision on our part to commit those kinds of resources unless you have somebody who's going to be there and available every single night. That's the truth. Jimmy's certainly been far from there and available every night since 2017. Now, I don't think Pat is blame-free either after lowballing on guys he could have gotten to give the Heat a better chance of winning it all. He hasn't made any significant improvements from the team that made it to the finals in the bubble 5 seasons ago. He's found some diamonds in the rough to help them make their Cinderella runs, but he hasn't found the guys that'll actually win them the championship since LeBron went back to the Cavs. That said though, he is doing the right thing by not paying Jimmy when he's 35, has had some injuries, and is not playing up to his standard this year. This way, the Heat are not stuck with Jimmy when he's in his late 30s like the Sixers likely will be with Paul George. I'm also pretty sure Pat knows way more about winning championships than Jimmy does. The rings speak for themselves. Pat has a ring as a player on the 1972 Lakers, 1 as an assistant coach, 5 as a head coach, and 2 as an executive. Jimmy has 0 rings. No matter how unprofessional Jimmy Butler's antics are, it's not the first time a star player has tried to force their way out of an organization. Jimmy has a lot less leverage than the examples I'm about to bring up though. First, Vince Carter. He got fed up with the Raptors management and gave up on trying. He even reportedly tipped off the Sonics bench what play the Raptors were running before he was traded to the Nets in December of 2004. The difference between Jimmy and Vince is their age. Even while not knowing yet that Vince would make 3 All-Star games, average 23 points per game during his 4.5 seasons with the Nets, and that the Nets would recently retire his number, he was still 27 at the time, while Jimmy is 35. So it was much easier for Vince to get what he wanted at the time than it is for Jimmy now. Next, Anthony Davis, and yes, I will be making a video on that very soon, but back to when he forced his way out of New Orleans to join LeBron on the Lakers. He had even more leverage than Vince Carter did when he was sitting out games towards the end of his time with the Pelicans and severely underperformed in the games he was playing during the second half of his last season in New Orleans. Not only was AD 25 at the time, but LeBron also wanted AD in LA. Not only would AD go to LA, he was able to bet on himself successfully, declining an extension he was offered during his first season in LA, and take more money after winning a championship. Jimmy has only proven he can get his team to the finals, but it's become clear he cannot be the guy on a championship team. Not even as a 1A, 1B guy like LeBron and AD were for the Lakers in 2020. Jimmy is in absolutely no position whatsoever to bet on himself. He's only hurting himself. Maybe he will get traded after the Heat lowered their asking price because they know this whole situation is irreparable. Like what happened when the Bulls only traded Will Perdue to get Dennis Rodman because the Spurs were that desperate to get rid of him when he was being volatile. Rodman was still averaging 17 rebounds per game and was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate in his 2 seasons in San Antonio though, and was younger at the time than Jimmy Butler is now. When Jimmy is locked in, we've seen what a fierce competitor he can be, but knowing he's older now and he will get volatile if he doesn't get the amount of money he wants, do teams really want to take that risk with him? Recently, the Pelicans were named as suitors, and as payback for the way Jimmy's been behaving, maybe Pat Riley will send him there to die, as the Pelicans have the 2nd worst record in the West right now. Imagine that. Maybe he could opt for a buyout in New Orleans, but I promise you, if that happens, he won't get a better contract than what he's getting now based on his play this year. The Warriors are potential suitors, and does he even fit their system? Or the Suns, since they're also dealing with a disgruntled star in Bradley Beal? I'm not so sure Jimmy fits with them either, and if he does go to Phoenix, Devin Booker's still pretty young, but not super young at 28. Kevin Durant being 36 and Jimmy Butler being 35 though, yeah, the Suns would just be too old, and I wouldn't have any faith in them becoming that much better with Jimmy instead of Beal. Or the Bucks, well, I see him as a better fit there than Phoenix or Golden State, but that's still another team where age would be a concern because Damian Lillard is 34 and Giannis is 30. They're also coached by Mr. Second Round Choker. Jimmy also most certainly won't get his big payday there, with Giannis and Dame making over $48 million this year, and then Giannis will make $58 million per year over the next 3 years, and Dame will make $112.5 million over the next 2 years after this year. If the Bucks trade Chris Middleton and Bobby Portis priorities for Jimmy, and we keep in mind Brook Lopez is about to be an unrestricted free agent after this season, the Bucks will have enough cap space to afford to pay Jimmy Butler the remainder of his contract. I still think they'd be foolish to give him the money he wants though, when he's only going to be the third best player on the team and he's 35. I think I'd be hesitant to pursue him no matter what because of his history of becoming volatile when he doesn't get paid the amount he believes he deserves. Phoenix or Milwaukee though, Jimmy better be able to accept that he won't be better than the third best player on either of those teams, and if the Warriors, of course we all know that's Stephen Curry's team. So Jimmy really should just accept that he's not worth the big bucks anymore, and if he actually wants to win, he'll need to do it by taking a lesser role. Even when he was at his best, it was proven that he's only good enough to get a team to the finals, but was never actually good enough to win a championship as the best player on his team, and that's okay. Only a very few players in NBA history were ever actually good enough to be the guy on a championship team. More than anything though, Jimmy needs to just be happy with what he's getting paid now and stop acting so childishly. That's all I have to say about this. Do you think Jimmy Butler will get traded before the deadline? If so, where? Please let me know in the comments. And also, what do you make of the whole saga? If you enjoyed this video, a like would be much appreciated. Please be sure to consider subscribing and turning on notifications. If you're a new subscriber, welcome to the team, and if you're already subscribed, thanks for your support as always. Links to my social media are down below for my more immediate reactions to what's going on in the sports world. Here's my most recent video and the one that YouTube recommends. Both are up above. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.